The Zone.
College football, Auburn without fired coach Brian Harsin, a 13-point underdog at Mississippi State Saturday night. 6th-ranked Alabama minus 13 at 15th-ranked LSU. Game 3 of the World Series postponed until tonight due to rain Monday night in Philadelphia. The Astros with Lance McCullers on the bump, a minus 120 moneyline favorite. Ranger Suarez getting the ball for Philly at plus 100. Tipping off college basketball across the nation in the next week. Gonzaga the odds-on favorite to win the national championship at plus 910. North Carolina at plus 940. Houston at plus 1010. Then Kentucky at plus 1040. Then Duke further down at plus 1420. Red hot winning picks at experts.winnersandwiners.com. Save 75% on any best bet package with the promo code ACTION75. That's ACTION75 at experts.winnersandwiners.com.
I'm Trey Westerberg, 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Log on today, 977ESPN.com. Welcome to Talkin' Ball with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
And just like that, we are off. We're running another brand new live edition of Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Theisen, Drew DeArmond with you until 9 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Welcome into the show. And boy, oh boy, once we decided to say goodbye yesterday, the world kept going, and boy, did it ever keep going. As finally, this was the much anticipated removal. I mean, this is like, when was it going to happen type of thing. And then yesterday, it eventually did happen. The Auburn Tigers fire head coach Brian Harsin. His record, well, first of all, he still owed 70% of his salary, approximately $15.97 million. He will receive half of that within the next 30 days. He's guaranteed his entire salary even if he accepts another head coaching job. 9-12, the fewest wins from a coach since Earl Brown, who won only 3 games from 1948 to 1950. 3-5 this year are the Auburn Tigers, and Brian Harsin out as head coach.
Yeah, it's not surprising. They had to get the athletic director hired officially, which they did, and we talked about it yesterday. I said it was probably going to be Monday, as there was had been a little bit of pushback over the weekend and some calls to President Roberts, but they got all that worked out, and then within not even an hour of the announcement via social media, by insiders putting out there's a 5-year deal for $1.5 million per year for the new athletic director. We knew that you shouldn't have been shocked that they, after John Cohen was put in place, that they let Brian Harsin go, and they certainly did around lunchtime. He was informed that he was not going to be retained as Auburn's football coach, and then what followed was every other Boise assistant or staffer, off-field staffer, was let go except for Jeff Schmedding, the defensive coordinator. He's the only one still in place.
Yeah, and Brad Larinando, Eric Kiesau, Darren Usher, and Brad Bedell.
Yep.
All let go.
Well, and Rock Bellatoni, I guess you could say he's kind of also aligned with Brian Harsin, but again, they let go of pretty much the entire offensive staff. And then except for Will Friend, the offensive line coach, and then, of course, Ike Hilliard, the wide receivers coach, and then Cadillac Williams. And then I thought it would be Zach Etheridge that would be the interim head coach, the defensive backfield coach for a former Auburn Tiger, but instead it was former Auburn Tiger Cadillac Williams. Crazy, man, because I remember – just seems like yesterday, it's been a little over 20 years, but that I was watching him play at Etowah High School, one of the best running backs that I ever saw, play in the high school ranks, and crazy. He helped his team win a state championship and then had a great prep career. And and then became an All-American at Auburn, and then a first-round draft choice, NFL Rookie of the Year, and now he's the interim head coach of the Auburn Tigers. So pretty crazy, but you kind of figured that it was not going to be one of the coordinators because they were Boise guys. So they were going to, elevate someone with Auburn ties, and the two that stood out the most was Cadillac Williams and Zach Etheridge. So one of those two, that's going to be a good opportunity for Carnell to run a program. He's never been a head coach before, so it'll be an opportunity for him to try to help this team finish strong. But their backs are going to be up against the wall. But again, it just wasn't surprising. It just didn't fit from the start. And Brian Harsin, it reminded me a lot of what I think would have happened long term with Mike Price at Alabama. He never coached a game, and he only went through one spring practice, but much like Harsin never really understood the gravity of where he was and what he needed to do and how he needed to recruit. I don't think Mike Price would have either, and it's ironic they were both West Coast guys, but they just weren't good fits. And Price never coached a game. We know what happened. Shula took over, and then Harsin just didn't win enough games, man. I mean, they got so much worse. He started 6-2, but they went into the tank and missed some golden opportunities. When you're up 28-3 against Mississippi State, that's a game you should win. They were 1 or 2 plays away from beating Alabama. I've said this before. I think if they beat Alabama, they get to a better bowl and they win the bowl, and then things are totally feeling different. But it just did not ever happen. And again, the recruiting and even it was hard for him to go into the portal because of his uncertain future after year one. But even after he won the power struggle, and he did it his way, and by doing it his way, it was firing Mike Bobo. During the season, he fired Quinnius Williams. He and Derek Mason, he allowed Mason to leave, and he got his guys and his coordinators. If you kind of read the tea leaves behind the scenes, and we'll talk to Brian Matthews about that in a few minutes, recruiting was not handled properly at all. You're talking about junior days that were botched.
He didn't even want a junior day.
Yeah,
that was not something he felt like.
And Brian's mentioned that before.
Brian's
been around since 2001, like covering it, and he was like, it's the worst I've ever seen. I mean, they even had one junior day where no one showed up, and they had to give it. It was basketball tickets to Kentucky. They had to give it to former basketball players, give the tickets away because no juniors showed up, basically because they had set it up late, and there was all other junior days going on around the country, and they couldn't get anybody in there. It just wasn't organized.
Right.
And and then when you think about it, I mean, he didn't cultivate relationships with high school coaches, which is so critical wherever you are. And so it's not like recruiting at Boise State. It's totally different, and I don't think he understood the gravity of that, and it just never worked out.
So does Brian Harsin go down? I mean, you look at the records and over the history of Auburn head coaches as far as like conference games go, worst coach that Auburn's had in its program?
Well, I mean, people always bring up the Doug Barfield days, but it's got to be the worst.
Doug Barfield was 15-14.
Well, I mean, I got to think this is the worst. And the reason I say it is I'm just because the transfer portal, you can transform your roster. And we can ask Brian about this too because he covered the team back in the days when Gus took over and Gene Chizik was fired. But, I mean, I don't see the talent that was left, right now on the roster that was left in 12 when Gene Chizik and those guys got let go. There were still a lot of really good players that were a part of a 2013 team that should have won the national championship, really.
Right.
And they had won the national championship 3 years before. The last few years under Gus were mediocre. Now, 2017 was good because they nearly made the playoff. But after that, it was mediocre. And I just think, and the recruiting since 17, like on the offensive line, we've harped on that for a long time about how it wasn't good. It didn't improve under Harsin. I just don't think the talent level right now is there at Auburn that was there that just was not coached well. At the end of the Chizik era, where when Gus came in, they changed systems, they got some energy going, and Gus had been there just a few years before, so some of the players knew him. The offense wasn't foreign, and it was able to get rolling. this time I think it's a bigger rebuild. Now, you can still rebuild faster because of the transfer portal and because of NIL and things of that nature. It's still going to take a year or two, I think, to stabilize everything and get it back going the way you want it if you hire the right guy. But again, I just think overall it's the talent level is probably as low as I've ever seen it at Auburn because, again, you think about it, just go back to early in the season. I mean, yes, they beat Mercer, but they were lucky to beat San Jose State. They were trailing 10-7 at halftime.
Lucky to beat San Jose State and very, very lucky to beat Missouri.
Oh, yeah,
This team is within an eyelash
of being winners in the SEC.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, that just tells you where
this is just not good. I mean, and in my prediction in Atlanta for them to finish fifth, and because they remember they were finished last, and everybody that picked it looks like they're going to get it exactly right. I thought Zach Calzada would be the quarterback. I thought he'd be a better fit. And then I thought their defense, to me, their defense has been the biggest disappointment. I thought their defense would be one of the top 4 or 5 in the SEC, and they have just completely backslid, and they are giving up rushing yards at an alarming rate. Whew. I mean, the last 3 games, over 1,000 yards. They've given up 23 rushing touchdowns. The stats are just ugly.
Yeah,
and I think they have some good players.
Yeah.
But they just don't. They just don't. They're
not coached.
I don't think they're being developed very well.
All right. So then you look at the list of great. Auburn has moved on. Where do they go from here? What do you do? Where do you go? What kind of coach do you get? Do you get an offensive-minded coach? Do you get a defensive coach? Do you get a coordinator, up-and-coming coordinator, or do you go out and try to land a proven head coach? And of course, the names that come to light, Lane Kiffin, Deion Sanders, Hugh Freeze. But what do you do? Do you go and get a retread? Some people have mentioned Dan Mullen's name. Do you go get a retread? Do you go get a coordinator? Do you go get a proven head coach that has pure SEC experience? Because that'll dwindle the list down. Do you go? Which route do you go?
Well, I would think with John Cohen being brought in and being told he's going to have more autonomy than previous athletic directors, and they even gave Alan Green, along with the previous president Gouge, autonomy to hire the coach a couple years ago, and he brought in Harsin. I've got to believe he's going to bring in his own guy, and I got to believe just like he did at Mississippi State when Dan Mullen went to Florida. He hired Joe Moorhead. That didn't work. This is kind of interesting, kind of like Auburn. He lasted 2 years, was shown the door. Yep. He went and got a proven head coach. He went and spent more money than they've ever spent, and they got Mike Leach, and Leach has made them very competitive. I've got to believe the same thing, except for he's going to shoot higher at Auburn. I got to believe, especially with this NIL collective, which is at least $11 million from what you hear, could be $13 million. You don't know the exact number, but
I heard 14 yesterday.
But it's significant. I mean, they have an NIL collective built up, and don't forget this. They're going to be debuting by the end of this season, a $90+ million football-only facility as well that's state-of-the-art for the football program that they're going to have to they'll be able to sell to recruits and to the new coach. So I would think from a facility standpoint, building that with your NIL collective, with the transfer portal, I would think they'd be trying to get a proven head coach. And Dan Mullen has won games, no question about that. But I don't – personality-wise and the way he did, he coached at Florida, I don't see him being a fit at Auburn with the people.
So everybody says Lane Kiffin. I mean, that's the first name they want to say. So let me just ask you this. Right now, is Ole Miss a better job than Auburn?
I still don't think so. Not if you get the right coach, because Ole Miss doesn't have the NIL collective that Auburn does. Ole Miss doesn't have the facilities that Auburn does. Ole Miss doesn't have the tradition that Auburn does. Ole Miss doesn't have as big a stadium as Auburn does. I mean, I can go down a list. I mean, you just go down now, I know they're not as good as Ole Miss right now. There's no question about that from a roster standpoint. But just historically, and with what Auburn's been able to accomplish and what Auburn's done, I mean, you still got to say that Auburn is a better job than Ole Miss. I mean, you just got to have the right guy. I mean, You've got other sports that are doing really well on campus because your baseball program's been to Omaha twice. You're upgrading those facilities. Your basketball program's been on fire under Bruce Pearl. Gymnastics has been making strides. Softball's been making strides. You've got some of the other sports that are in good shape. Softball's pretty solid. So I mean, you've shown the ability to win as an athletic department, and then again. Just a few short years ago, you were in the playoff mix in 2017. So it doesn't take long to turn it around. I still think there's more selling points. The only thing that is a minus is you're going up against Alabama and say you're going up against Nick Saban, but at the same time you push each other. So if Alabama's winning, if Alabama's spending money, then Auburn's trying to win, Auburn's trying to spend money, and they push each other. So to me, the ceiling is much higher at Auburn than it is at Ole Miss. Ole Miss has never played in the SEC championship hadn't won a national championship since the 1960s. I mean, they're a solid program with a good fan base, but Ole Miss is not Auburn.
The upside is more on the Auburn favor
completely.
Than it is in the Ole Miss side.
And from a support standpoint, I mean, think about it.
Ole Miss pay if Lane Kiffin says, okay, ultimately let's just say that's where John Cohen would start with Lane Kiffin, and Ole Miss comes in and says, okay, we can pay. Can Ole Miss pay?
They're already paying him $7 million. So
is that almost tops to where you think Ole Miss can go on a ceiling?
I don't know. They might be able to go higher, but again, they're paying him $7 million. They just gave him that raise, so they were paying him $2 million more than Harsin was making.
Right.
So he was already making more than Harsin, and it's more than any Ole Miss coach has ever made. So they've certainly made a financial commitment. But when you think about Auburn and how badly they want to win, and this is talking about you got to spend money to win, got to spend money to make money, that old adage or whatnot, they're still paying off Gus Malzahn. They're about to have to pay $7.5 million by the end of this month or whatnot within the month to Harsin, and then over a several month period. They got to pay off the rest of the contract, and they're going to do that $15.5 million or whatever it is. That's significant. You're still paying off Gus Malzahn.
$41.5 million is what Auburn is paying.
And then think about this, and then you're going to have to make a huge financial commitment to the new coaching staff because you're just going to. I would think that when this is all said and done, Auburn's going to spend $8 to $9 million a year on a coach. That's just estimating.
Okay.
And so that's just the head coach. But then you're talking about staff. So you're going to have to give them a big-time staff budget. So it's going to be a lot of money. And so that means big money Auburn people are stepping up to try to make this happen.
So then let me run down some of these names for you real fast. And if you're saying $9 million, would you pay them $9 million to come in and lead the Auburn program? Deion Sanders. Would you pay Deion Sanders $9 million and trust him to lead his name is just hot. That's why we brought it up.
I don't think Deion would get that kind of money for being a first-time Power 5 head coach.
Right.
Now, Lane Kiffin's already making $7 million where he's at.
So you can give him $9 million.
The risk for Lane Kiffin is, has he ever won a championship at any level besides in the Sun Belt or wherever the hell FAU's in?
Right.
That's pretty much it.
Hasn't been around long enough to even –
and he's really not stayed anywhere long enough because, the guy gets fired. Yeah. We've already seen that. Pretty much FAU's the only place he's ever left where he didn't get canned.
True.
He was 28-15 and was 3-2, I think, when they lost to Arizona State and was fired off the bus at USC. So you might not even want to know what happened.
All right. A popular name that's been mentioned, Jeff Grimes, Baylor offensive coordinator, former Auburn coach. His name's been mentioned.
And he has connections. He's been there a couple times. He's done a great job for DeArmond at Baylor, but to me, that they'd have to get down the list for that to happen.
That wouldn't be the hire that you would.
I don't think it's going to be Deion Sanders. I'll say that. Lane Kiffin is, in the end, I would be mildly surprised, even though the media is reporting him as the number one candidate. Now, a lot of times that doesn't work out.
No.
And so we will see. I still think Hugh Freeze is the best fit because, again, I know he just agreed or signed or whatever you want to call it, the guaranteed contract, the 8-year deal at Liberty. But if you look closer, from what I understand, the buyout has not increased. I think it's around $2.5 million, which Auburn's already paying all these others. They paid, and I think they paid a pittance, $250,000 maybe to buy out John Cohen. And by the way, they're paying his salary.
Right.
So, and so again, They could definitely pay that out, and I think Hugh Freeze wants the job because he wants back on the biggest stage. Of course, right. I had someone reach out to me and say, well, I mean, I don't know if he'd want that pressure. I don't know. Look, of course he would. I mean, and of course he's making really good money at Liberty. He is making nearly $5 million a year. But Auburn could almost double his salary. I mean, if Auburn wanted to, they can pay him $9.5 million. Right. I mean, that's a huge investment, and he's in the best conference in the country. And his daughter went to Auburn, so there's connections there. But the problem is he has baggage. But Lane Kiffin does too. And Lane Kiffin's being prominently mentioned.
They hired Bruce Pearl with baggage.
Yeah, and they hired him with a show cause because they thought he was the best coach for them.
So let me just...
And it's worked out unbelievable.
Should we cross off the fantasy list of Urban Meyer?
Oh, just good Lord. Don't even...
We're just crossing that one off. Here's a long shot name. Mark Stoops.
I mean, I heard his name mentioned yesterday. You're going to hear a lot of names mentioned.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of names. We're just throwing names on the board, and then they may or may not stick.
And he's done a great job recruiting at Kentucky. Now, whether he'd do that at Auburn, I don't know. I don't know if he would be a fit at Auburn. So that's just going to be interesting.
Yeah. All right, let's get out to the phone lines real fast. Jeff from the Borough with us. Good morning, Jeff.
Just a few things. First of all, Auburn gets what they deserve. When you fire a coach that wins a national championship, and you fire Malzahn that did pretty good against Saban, Harsin should have never left Idaho. He's like Scott Frost. He's a failure. Scott Frost should have never left Florida. Darren Owen, Dennis Phelps, and failures in basketball. So like our legendary track coach over at my alma mater said, the grass is always greener on the other side, but there ain't enough grass. So you stay where you're at. You don't fool around. So again, he's a failure. Take his money. He's got. That's what you want, the $15 million and all that. But he's a failure, a fat failure. That's what he is. He got fired, so he's a he probably won't ever coach again, or he might coach Division II or 1AA, whatever. He'll never coach again because he left Boise, he left Idaho, and all the assistants never should have left either. They should have stayed right up there. But like I say, people want to fool with the SEC, and he couldn't hang. So Auburn gets what they deserve, and John told me he wants to fool with it. That's his problem. It's a lateral move for him. Mississippi State to Auburn. It's a lateral move, and that's all it is. It's all it'll ever be. That's what it is. And as far as the Levis thing yesterday, Mr. Drew DeArmond, there's a guy that's a Georgia fan that told me, he said, I would never draft no Bryce Young. He said he's too small for the NFL. He's too bad.
Well, then you're both stupid.
He said, well. He said Levis, and he'll probably be a first-round draft pick, and there's nothing you can do about it. As simple as that.
I can watch people get fired, just like you would.
They're not going to get fired. Simple as that. They're going to get fired. The Titans GM should be fired for trading A.J. Brown. He should be fired that night. He should have been fired, but he wasn't.
A.J. Brown didn't want to be there. I mean, what do you
think?
He
should have been fired for doing it anyway. He should have been fired right then for doing it. I don't give a darn. He should have been fired.
What are you going to do, make a guy play there and then make the whole team miserable and be a cancer?
What
are you going to do?
We can get paid.
That's right. He's
I'll pay him.
I mean, you either pay him or trade him.
He's winning in Philadelphia, isn't he? He's probably going to win the Super Bowl. He never win one with the Titans.
Well, Marcus Mariota's winning in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, that's right. He ain't never going to win with the Titans, is he? You got Queen Henry, and you got Apple turnover Tannehill. You ain't going to win with them two. You ain't never going to win with those two people. Queen Henry, you kidding me, babe? He couldn't run a 40 in about 5 seconds. He's nothing happening. Have a good day.
He's better than anybody Kentucky has ever had. Ever in their life, Jeff. Ever.
Oh, good Lord.
Benny Snell couldn't clean his bathroom. You understand me, punk? He couldn't clean his bathroom. So go clean John Calipari's, pal, and hope you don't choke and lose to freaking St. Peter's in the first round. Have a good day, clown.
All right, I know Brandon's holding, but we got to get to break. We got to get to break because we got to talk Auburn football. And Brian Matthews coming up next.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Good morning. Got a wreck at the 3120Y coming out of Decatur. It's in the lanes that go northbound toward Athens. Traffic coming toward Huntsville is able to get by it. Got a wreck at Huntsville-Browns Ferry in 65. It's out of the way. Got another wreck northbound 31 near the boat harbor and all that backup. I don't think it's an injury type. 72 in Lucas Ferry in Limestone County should be gone. Someone dies from heart disease every 36 seconds. Dr. Randall Burns and the team at Huntsville Heart Specialist on Bob Wallace Avenue can help you keep your heart healthy. Captain Nick in the Jordan Lane Popeyes Skywatch Traffic Center.
Specializing in simple and affordable rentals, McCurry Van and Car Rental can make sure you have just the right vehicle for your next family vacation, weekend getaway, or if you just need transportation while your vehicle is being repaired. McCurry carries Ford Transit vans and Mercedes Sprinter vans, trucks and work vans, and more. And they offer discounted rental rates for long-term rentals. Now with 4 locations: Athens, Muscle Shoals, Coleman, and Huntsville. Log on McCurryRentals.com to make your reservation now. That's McCurryRentals.com.
The kitchen is the heart of any home. It's where the family gathers. It's where kids discover old recipes and make them their own. Just starting out or just now getting started on the dream kitchen you've always wanted?
I'm Chris Haygood, and from all of us here at Bob Wallace Appliance to the home builders and the homeowners of the Huntsville area, a heartfelt thank you for buying local. We're in Huntsville, Florence, and Coleman, and online at bobwallaceappliance.com.
Organizations using Salesforce know how powerful the platform is and how much time, money, and headaches it saves if it's set up right and you know how to use it. Let's face it, Salesforce is complicated and time-consuming to figure out, and a lot can go wrong now and down the road without expert help. That's why most Salesforce users work with an implementation partner like Higher Echelon, so they get the absolute most out of their Salesforce investment. Higher Echelon is a 5-star Salesforce consulting partner who won Salesforce Military Hiring Partner of the Year. President Dr. Joe Ross is retired Army who played and later coached for the cadets. He puts that experience to good use at Higher Echelon, where they pride themselves on hiring veterans. Look, not all Salesforce partners are the same. Don't put your company at risk by going with an inferior partner. Higher Echelon is the trusted partner you can count on to get you up and running and seeing returns on your Salesforce investment in a fraction of the time it would take if you go it alone. Go to higherechelon.com. That's HIGHERECHELON.com to learn more. Go higher and go Army.
I'm attorney Gary Lackey. You know, you'll hear people say we're like a family, but here at the Lackey Law Firm, that's really true, not just a saying.
I'm Justin Lackey. With my father and my sister, we have a special connection to each other.
I'm Jennifer Lackey. At the Lackey Law Firm, when we take on your case, you become part of our family. You really do.
And we'll always do whatever it takes to get everything you deserve.
If you're injured, you worry about getting well, not about paperwork or insurance companies or figuring out how to get to your lawyer's office. I'll come to you.
We worry about your case so you don't have to.
When you've been injured, we know that your case is probably the biggest thing going on in your life. More important than almost anything else.
And it's important to us too, for one simple reason. Family takes care of each other, and at the Lackey Law Firm, we'll take care of you.
The Lackey Law Firm. The Lackey Law Family. 1-800-4RIGHTS.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're speaking another language, like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
Football season is here, and as always, the best place to catch every game is downtown at Humphreys Bar and Grill. Humphreys is celebrating by bringing back their game day football specials. $2.75 Miller Lite, Coors Light, Yingling, and $3.50 Yellow Hammer Gold Pints. $4 Fireball shots. Anytime football is on. And don't forget football trivia every Sunday night at 6. The best place to catch all the games all season long is downtown at Humphreys Bar and Grill.
The 2 words we live by. The coach we follow. All
right, blow the horn. Let's go.
The famous call we love to hear.
Touchdown, Alabama!
It's good to be a Bama fan. Join us Saturday as the Crimson Tide brave Death Valley to battle the LSU Tigers. Our coverage begins at 3 on your home for Alabama football.
Listen to Alabama football all season long on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Coming up next, it's the Tom Abraham Show with me, Tom Abraham. Now back to more Talking Ball with Scott and Drew.
Hi, welcome back. Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. And obviously, that first segment there dominated by the news yesterday that Auburn parting ways with Brian Harsin, a parting of the ways that I think a lot of people thought was going to happen during the bye week, but what probably prolonged that was Auburn didn't have an athletic director. And as soon as John Cohen was named, bam, a decision was made. So, you have to speculate that, yes, if there was an athletics director in place, permanent one, this would have happened a couple weeks ago. But it is now the case, and it's kind of ironic that Auburn plays Mississippi State on Saturday.
Totally. It's another just in the stories of the SEC about hires and how ironic things are. Could history repeat itself again? Tommy Tuberville was hired away from Ole Miss. Could Lane Kiffin be done? The same be said for that. We're going to talk to our next guest about it. He's been around since 2001. He's seen a lot of these things go down and happen. He writes for and covers Auburn for Auburn Rivals, which of course is auburnsports.com, and it's our good friend Brian Matthews, who I'm sure had to sleep fast. Brian, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Doing great. Appreciate you guys having me in.
Yeah, thank you. And you've been covering this since 2001. I made this statement, and you can agree. You'd be even better to ask this because you're there every day. I just said that compared to the situations in 2012 and now, that I think this Auburn roster is in worse shape because I think DeGene Chizik and his staff had done a pretty good job recruiting, and that's why this hire is so critical. First, the athletic director, which they've done, and now John Cohen going out and getting the right fit for Auburn as head coach, because with the transfer portal, with NIL, which looks like NIL is definitely on the upswing at Auburn, they've got to get this right, though, because this roster right now is depleted.
It is. I would say the roster, the projected roster for 2023 is as bad as I've ever seen it in my lifetime as a student and then the journalist covering Auburn. Maybe compared to 99, but that was Tuberville's first year.
Yes.
But the SEC then and the SEC now are two different beasts, right? The SEC is much, much stronger from top to bottom now. So, this new staff, when they do take over this team, they've got a lot of work to do, and they got to hit the ground running right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do.
Well, obviously, this was an inevitable thing, I guess, to happen. I don't think it surprises anybody that it happens. But now moving forward, were you surprised that Cadillac Williams was named the interim coach?
Well, he was my pick.
Okay.
For this going down. Am I a little surprised? Yes, because a lot of times, schools and administrators go with the safe pick, which would have been one of the coordinators. But
not in this case.
They absolutely did the right move there. Most of the Boise guys were let go yesterday too, and getting a guy like Cadillac in there, a guy who's an Auburn man, right, from the state, knows this school and this town and understands it, and a guy that fans will rally around. I think it was the perfect pick to lead this program for the next 4 weeks.
Well, and Brian, you made this statement one of the last times you were on with us, and it was to me it was alarming because you said basically, and you've been covering it as a journalist and so on, that this past year and a half or whatnot was probably the worst recruiting in like junior days that you'd ever seen in your life. As part of, and then see that's on Harsin, because to me it just reeks of what I think would have happened if Mike Price had stayed at Alabama for a year or two or three. I think it would have been a horrific fit. It was. I don't think he understood where he was, and it seemed from the jump that Harsin just did not understand the South and how to handle things. We saw that he made they had the inquiry into his program, and he won that battle, and then got his guys in as coordinators, and it got even worse. So it just never seemed that he understood Auburn or how to approach things.
Well, I think you nailed it. He never really understood Auburn, never really wanted to. He wanted to do things his way.
That's a good point.
And it was the Boise way, and that really wasn't going to work at Auburn at all. Auburn expects to compete with Georgia and Alabama. And if you're going to do that right now, you've got to recruit at the top of the nation, right? You got to get guys that are very, very talented. You've got to go after the best of the best, and Auburn wasn't even in contention for those guys with Brian Harsin. So the first step, I think, in Auburn getting back to competing, with their two biggest rivals is to get back on that recruiting trail and really start competing with them.
Yeah, and we were talking about, there's a long list. Everybody wants to put names in that list. And, is this a case where Auburn goes out and looks for someone within the family, or do they venture outside the family to try to find this next coach?
Well, I think this is going to be wide open, with John Cohen now, just a day into his tenure as Auburn's AD, right? And there are a bunch of names out there, and I don't think there's a perfect hire for Auburn that I'm aware of, right? There's a bunch of guys out there Auburn could hire. Some of them have that coaching experience and success and maybe some off-the-field issues. Some of them are young and up and coming. You take a chance on. You just don't know. And some of them have had success, but you don't know how good a recruiting person or head coach that'd be. So I think Lane Kiffin, though, is going to be one of the top guys that Auburn's going to target. It makes a lot of sense that Auburn would go after him. He's had success recruiting, coaching in the SEC. Cohen, if he was to target him, would be helping Auburn, hurting Ole Miss, and in an indirect way helping Mississippi State too. So it might work out pretty well for him. But I think this is going to be sort of a wide open search. I think Cohen has shown in the past that he's willing to go anywhere and talk to just about anybody when it comes to coaching search.
Well, and then the 21st president of Auburn now in place, Dr. Chris Roberts, he obviously handled this search, and even a week ago, I didn't see John Cohen being the guy, so they obviously went outside the Auburn bubble there, but then they also promoted Rich McGlynn, which, as you retweeted and reported, seems to have pleased a lot of coaches like a Bruce Pearl, like a like Butch Thompson on campus, so it's kind of the best of both worlds for Auburn right now.
Yeah, and I think speaking of Pearl and Butch Thompson, I think they're really pleased with the Cohen hire. I think they both have relationships with them, especially Butch, who coached underneath him at Mississippi State. He was their pitching coach, so I think that was a big plus there too. But it's a big hire for Auburn. I feel like, and I feel like Dr. Roberts probably feels like his part of this search in the football program is over. And I think he really wants to turn it over to John Cohen and let him handle the coaching search. Mm-hmm. And, we'll see if things can go smoothly at Auburn. We know sometimes they don't. But I think Dr. Roberts has really worked hard behind the scenes to get everybody on the same page and make sure they understand that, you can't go in a bunch of willy-nilly directions. When these searches go down, you've got to be a program that has one voice, and that's going to be John Cohen. So we'll see how that works out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about it on the show. We've talked about it with you, but for those that maybe are listening now and not have paid a lot of attention to it, that new coach that comes in, talk about this recruiting a little bit more, just how much and how big of a challenge that is going to be for this next head coach that comes in.
Well, it's a rebuilding project. There's no doubt about that. If you look at what's coming back for Auburn next year right now, they're going to have some pretty good running backs, some pretty good defensive backs, and the rest of the roster, pretty good tight ends. And the rest of the roster has really got to be rebuilt. They do have some good young receivers. I feel like that could be much better next year. And I guess you could say Robbie Ashford is taking a step forward here over the last week. We'll see how that looks against some better defenses coming up. But the biggest area is the line of scrimmage. Auburn doesn't have a bunch of young guys on either side, that have played a lot or proven themselves or shown a bunch of potential. So that's going to be an area of the team that's going to have to be totally rebuilt, and they're going to have to hit the transfer portal really hard at the line of scrimmage.
And I think that's one of the attractions of Lane Kiffin, because he did such a nice job refurbishing Ole Miss in the transfer portal, over 20 guys. And then we know he can recruit as well. I mean, they've got their recruiting classes in the top 15 to 20 in the country. So you can transform a roster quickly, and Auburn's going to have to do that, because I would think this coach is going to be in place less than a week after the Iron Bowl, because nobody's anticipating anything can happen. But I don't think anybody's anticipating Auburn being bowl eligible, and they're anticipating them trying to, as you said, hit the ground running before the early signing period in December for the high school players, and then because of the transfer portal window being open.
Yeah, I guess Auburn at 5-7 could be going to a bowl game, just because of the way it is now.
Right.
But it won't be it won't be anything, that's a priority, I guess you could say. But you take a Kiffin, for example. One thing that's a positive with him is he has shown wherever he is that he can adapt and do what's best at that moment for that program. At Alabama, he had some great quarterback and some great receivers, and had one of the better passing offenses I've seen. At Ole Miss, he goes and he puts together one of the best running attacks in the conference. At Alabama, of course, he was able to go out there and help that staff recruit, some of the best high school talent in the country every year. At Ole Miss, he knows it's a little bit harder to compete for the high school talent, so he goes out and signs a huge class of transfers and has success there. So I like that about him as one candidate. And just to throw some more names out there to watch, Hugh Freeze at Liberty.
Yeah, that's been my guy.
Brown,
yeah.
at Baylor. Matt Rule, former Baylor and former Carolina coach, is going to be a candidate. I think Deion Sanders will probably be a candidate. Dave Aranda, I think he's the current Baylor coach. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
I think he will be a candidate. And then I'll throw some other names out there, just my names. I think Sonny Dyke should be a candidate for TCU. What he's doing out there, and I think Brian Hartline from Ohio State,
recruiter,
I think
right?
He's one of the up and coming coaches in the country. I think he should be a candidate too.
Deion Sanders is a name that we talked a lot about in our first segment and stuff, and we were like, okay, if this is the direction that Auburn would go, Deion Sanders. I mean, would what kind of salary do you think Auburn would have to pay to get him? And if it's a Lane Kiffin, I mean, are we talking $9-10 million to bring in a Lane Kiffin? Is that something that Auburn, you think, is committed to doing?
Oh yeah, I mean, Auburn's never had trouble paying the coaches, right?
Yeah,
right.
I already said that. Yeah, they're not going to.
Yeah, so I don't think that'll be a problem. As far as Deion goes, I don't know whether that's worth the risk, right? Taking a guy that has zero,
Power 5
experience.
Yeah.
Taking a guy you just don't know how he's going to perform, with this big of a job, this much pressure, and this many people who want to give their opinions about things, So I don't know if that would be a great hire for Auburn. Maybe it would be. A lot of people out there feel like it would be, fans are behind them. But me personally, a guy who's, covered college football for a while, I just wonder if that could really, really blow up in Auburn's a situation for them that can really blow up. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Don't want to say, bad things, because I could be wrong there. And I do think he's a possibility to be a candidate. But I'd be very concerned if that's the direction Auburn went.
Yeah, I don't anticipate that. And then we see John Cohen, his hiring history. He did miss on Joe Moorhead, who was a high-profile coordinator, but then he corrected it within 2 years, and he hired Mike Leach, which at the time everybody thought that was as good a hire as Mississippi State could have made. I would think that John Cohen will be given a lot of autonomy here, and that he will try to hire a standing head coach because it's a critical time for Auburn. And, the one thing I will say is I do think, President Roberts did a great job of kind of keeping the circle tight, and it wasn't leaked about Cohen until, really on a game day, which nobody saw coming. And so Cohen, if he keeps the circle tight, I think it's once again going to be a search that's going to be kind of tight-lipped, and you'll be able to follow it, but you might not know exactly what's coming.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, I think getting Cohen in now, it gives them 4+ weeks to get this thing done, and I would expect Auburn to move as quickly as possible after the end of the season, right after the Iron Bowl, because you've got the transfer portal coming up. Auburn faces a really tough situation in 2023 unless they take some really decisive moves and quickly. Mm-hmm. So I would be surprised if John Cohen doesn't have things lined up to move really fast after the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, and he's got some big-time things to sell, too, because the football-only building, $90+ million, It will be making its debut. And we don't know the exact amount, Brian. You might be able to let us know, but with the NIL, the On to Victory Collective, we hear is at least $11 million+ that they've built up for football.
Yeah, I know they've been working hard behind the scenes. I know that Auburn felt like they fell behind in NIL. I think part of that was because Brian Harsin did not think it should be a priority. Mm-hmm. He was the leader of the program at that time, but that's changed, and some people who are much smarter and brighter have taken control of that and pushed it and built it up. And I think it's going to be in place for the next coach, and I think that'll be a selling tool for Auburn. Saying, you come in here, you've got this, we're going to back you with this big NIL collective, and we're going to hit the ground running right away.
Wow. And it's going to be difficult, but what are you guys hearing though with Eric Kiesau being gone, Cadillac Williams taking over as head coach? I'm sure he's still going to be with his guys with the running backs. Who is going to coordinate this offense now that they've made these changes?
I do not have that answer yet, but I'm going to find that out today probably. So I'm going to work on that one.
Well, that's going to be something reported later today then, yeah.
Yeah, I've still got some questions to answer as far as the staff going forward, but I think the key was putting Carnell in charge and everybody getting behind him, and I think they will. I think people outside of Auburn that don't understand Auburn or don't follow Auburn closely are going to be really surprised when they see the support this team gets and 11 more days when Texas A&M comes to Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Oh, I think they'll be excited, and I thought they still played hard under Harsin. I do think that there was some. Finally, at the end of the Arkansas game, I think there was some resignation that are we ever going to turn this thing around? But again, there's going to be renewed energy and people getting behind Carnell. So I think they'll play hard against Mississippi State. I just don't know if they have enough horses.
Yep. Well, yeah, that's absolutely right. But I think the Auburn fans have been through it, right?
Yeah.
And if you really look at this, if you really examine it, this was one of the worst eras of Auburn football. Like it only lasted a year and is it 8 games?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But it's no more we can compare something bad happened at Auburn to the Doug Barfield area.
That's what I said earlier. I said this is worse. This has got to be worse. And I was too young, but it's got to be the worst, no doubt. But, luckily with the climate the way it is today, if you make the right hire, you can turn it around quickly. We've seen teams already do that. What Matt Rule did, I know he's one of the candidates at Auburn, what he did taking over that Baylor program, what they were going through, and in just a few short years, turned them completely around. I think he'd be a Grand Slam hire, too. I don't know. I know he's called some people and vetted Auburn. I don't know if that'll be a match, but he would certainly be another good fit, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think John Cohen's going to have a list of pretty good coaches to talk to and to vet and to figure out which one he feels like the best fit for Auburn is. So it should be a fun time if you're interested in Auburn and those things to follow this coaching search. I think it's going to be pretty lively.
Well, just let everybody know how to follow you, man, because I know you're going to have some more news later today.
I appreciate that. You can follow us at auburnsports.com. Follow me on Twitter at BMattAU, and we will have continuing updates from Auburn and the coaching staff that Cadillac puts together, and John Cohen's plans for the future, and the basketball getting started here, I think, with the exhibition game tomorrow night.
UAH.
Baseball's playing their their World Series to close out fall practice this week. And we're getting together for our podcast here in a few more hours. So all that and more at auburnsports.com.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Let's get that break in. Hour one, wrap it up next.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Got a wreck reported now, 431 and Wilson Man Road. That one's coming in as an injury type. Still may have some problems at the 3120Y north side of Decatur. Had a wreck there in the lanes going northbound toward Athens. Also back on 31 about the boat harbor. That one was in the left lane. Both of those reporting no injury. 2030 Fast Track can make your clothes fall off. Greg lost 92 pounds in 6 months on the plan. A free quiz will tell you if the program can work for you. 2030huntsville.com. Captain Nick in the North Parkway Popeyes Skywatch Traffic Center.
Is I had a few too many happening too often? Does I'm stopping at 2 drinks become more like 4 or 5? You're not alone. 1 in 7 people struggle with alcohol. Bradford can help. For over 40 years, Bradford's affordable rehab programs have helped people overcome addiction and return to healthy, productive lives. Call 888-SOBER-40 for confidential help 24/7. Start your comeback with Bradford. Call 888-SOBER-40 or visit bradfordhealth.com.
Hi, my name is Dan Aldridge. I'm here to let you know about the Aldridge Law Firm and the soon-to-be-announced Legal Town Center. I've been practicing law in Alabama since 1984, and I also practice in Tennessee. And I'm from North Alabama, and I'm here to represent you and take care of your legal needs. For many of us, hiring an attorney is not high on the priority list, and maybe a little scary. But it's something that we all need at some point. So by all means, do your homework. And if you need representation for car accident, wrongful death, medical malpractice, nursing home abuse, or estate planning, or any other matter, just give us a call at 256-534-3188. And you can email me at Dan, that is Dan at danaldridgelaw.com. Dan at danaldridgelaw.com. God bless America.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
You want the right specialist for your recovery. At SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center, we understand every body is different. Your muscles and bones are unique, as is your body. Our SportsMed specialists offer innovative treatments and minimally invasive procedures, allowing you to quickly return to the life you love. Locations in Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur, and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com. Improving performance, improving lives.
Men, are you having performance issues in the bedroom? Is erectile dysfunction affecting your confidence and self-esteem? Is your relationship being impacted? If ED is a problem in your life, maybe it's time to make the last time you had bad sex the last time you'll have bad sex. At the Huntsville Men's Clinic, we've successfully treated many men in the area for ED and given them back their confidence, their positivity, and in many cases, helped their relationships. Our expertise is second to none, and our practice is staffed by quality medical professionals. Beyond this, the treatments we use have proven success rates as high as 90%. And unlike online pharmacies that just sell pills, or wave clinics that only offer one treatment option, we have a variety of treatment protocols, including acoustic wave therapy. We found that sometimes a combination of therapies works best, and a one-size-fits-all approach can't get you there. So make the call. Your initial appointment is only $99 and includes blood work, a medical consult, and if medically advised, a test dose. Call 256-368-0333 or go to HuntsvilleMen'sClinic.com.
Have you ever turned your back on God? Have you ever absolutely known the right thing to do and just turned around and walked away in disobedience? I know that I have. Aren't we thankful for our great and merciful God who loves us and forgives us and remembers our sin no more? I'm so thankful that His mercies are fresh every day. I need that, and I suspect you do too. Hey, I'm John Dees, pastor of Cross Point Church, and if you're looking for a church home, come see us. We're smack dab across the street from the YMCA in Madison, and check us out at cpcfamily.org.
Tom Luganbill here for my friends at Woody Anderson Ford. Bobby White and his team take great pride in their service department, and you can see it the moment you walk into those beautiful new service lanes. And just like a championship team, they all work together to make sure your experience is second to none, whether you drive a Ford or not. Also, check out the gold certified pre-owned inventory at Woody Anderson Ford for great deals every day. Stop by and see them at Jordan and Sparkman or at Woody Anderson of Madison on Hughes Road, or visit WoodyAndersonFord.com.
Great food and the best live entertainment is what it's all about at the Furniture Factory Bar and Grill. Head to downtown Huntsville every Tuesday for karaoke on the only outdoor karaoke stage in North Alabama. Thursday night is the Valley's longest running and biggest bike night. Food and drink specials, giveaways, and live music on the patio. And the Furniture Factory menu is fully loaded with options from steaks to salads, plus a whole lot more. Featuring a weekday happy hour that starts at 3. 619 Meridian Street, downtown Huntsville, and online at FurnitureFactoryBarGrill.com.
Welcome back, Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Just about ready to wrap up hour one of the conversation here. All of that conversation has been dealt. That conversation has been centered, I should say, around Auburn dismissing Brian Harsin and moving on from the Brian Harsin era, and an era that Brian Matthews just told us and what we talked about earlier, the worst era in Auburn football. And it is hard to believe. Just when you thought you heard it all when it comes to Brian Harsin, and I'm sure more stuff will surface.
Yeah.
But for him to think that the collectives and all that stuff was not a thing of need at Auburn, along with some of the recruiting stuff.
Well, and like the not having junior days, and like, Jason Caldwell reported yesterday that he barely got out on the road, to go to high schools during the evaluation period in January. And this season, he didn't have his coaches out on the road. He had them in for meetings on Friday nights. They weren't going out on the road recruiting. I mean, he has had no idea how to build a program at Auburn. And he didn't try to build a relationship with anybody around the program in the time he was there. I mean, I just don't. Now, I do think most of the players bought in, at least, the ones that stayed and believed in him. But I just don't think the people around Auburn, the money people, the fans, he made no connection to them.
Right.
And he had no idea how to build the program at Auburn. Like Brian said, he thought he could do it the Boise way, and you can't do that. You need better players than that. They had good players at Boise, and they put guys in the NFL, but it doesn't get you through the meat grinder of the SEC. And you have to know how to build a program. You have to know how to attack the transfer portal, and you have to know how to keep your guys on your roster. And you gotta NIL has to be. It's a new world, as I've heard many athletic administrators say already, and coaches. You have to be able to participate and adapt, or you're not going to survive. And Brian Harsin didn't survive. He's going to get $15.5 million to go away. Certainly, he's going to get a lot of money. You hate it for his assistant coaches, some of those guys that were swept out. But I think all of them will bounce back. Coaching is kind of a fraternal thing. They'll probably, a lot of them will end up back on the West Coast.
I was going to say there's a lot of openings. There's a lot of openings on the West Coast that he could land in, and
Harsin himself.
It doesn't have to be a Power 5 job. I mean, there could be a Group of 5 job where he lands in and excels again.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I don't think Brian Harsin forgot how to coach football. The guy can coach football. He just can't coach it. Not every coach can coach in the SEC.
No.
Not every coach can coach in the Big Ten or the Pac-12 or whatever. Some coaches aren't cut to be Power 5 coaches. They're Group of 5 coaches and good at that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Brian Harsin is one of those. Just not a Power 5 SEC football coach. All right, hour one's in the books. Hour two, going to talk high school basketball coming up next.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
This is Attorney Tommy Sinyard on behalf of Sinyard Law, and again proud to be a sponsor of All Things Football here on ESPN Radio. My son Bart and I started our own law firm July 1 and are very proud and excited to be bringing you our 50 years of collective national award-winning injury trial law experience. Check us out on the web, sinyardlaw.com.
Sinyard Law, nationally recognized, locally respected.
Sitting here with Mark Kent of Southern Fidelity Mortgage Group of Huntsville. Mark, do you help pre-qualify people?
We pre-qualify people all the time, Wes. As a matter of fact, I love having them coming in here because when they come in and they pre-qualify, they can leave my office knowing exactly how much they can buy and have no worries.
Mark, tell me about your rates and pricing.
Well, Wes, this is something we're really, really proud of. Long story short is, I love being able to provide the best pricing in town. Honestly, I cannot tell you the last time I lost a deal to either rate or pricing, something I'm very proud of.
So what all?
WZZN, Union Grove, Huntsville, Alabama. 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Just got a wreck westbound at Governor's in 4th. They're running it as a possible injury accident. 431 and Milt Wilson, man reported with an injury, and they were still trying to clear 31 and 20 at the Y. That one was affecting northbound traffic trying to go toward Athens. Popeye's $6 Big Box is back with 2 pieces of the crispy hand-breaded Louisiana seasoned chicken, 2 sides, and a buttermilk biscuit. Popeye's University and George 72 and Jeff and North Parkway. Captain Nick in the Popeyes Skywatch Traffic Center.
From the Fox 54 Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Jordan Dressman. Not a bad way to start off the month of November across North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee. A partly sunny sky, temperatures climbing into the low and mid-70s, only dropping into the mid-and-upper 50s through the overnight early into your Wednesday morning. A partly sunny sky through Wednesday afternoon. Once again, temperatures climbing into the mid-70s. We're essentially going to repeat this process as we head into Thursday. I'm Chief Meteorologist Jordan Dressman on your home for ESPN Radio, 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
This is Brent Musburger's VSiN Action Update on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Game 3 of the World Series postponed until tonight due to rain Monday night in Philadelphia. The Astros with Lance McCullers on the bump, a -120 moneyline favorite. Ranger Suarez getting the ball for Philly at +100. Tipping off college basketball across the nation in the next week. Gonzaga, the odds-on favorite to win the national championship at +910. North Carolina at +940. Houston at +1010. Then Kentucky at +1040. Then Duke further down at +1420. College football, Auburn without fired coach Brian Harsin, a 13-point underdog at Mississippi State Saturday night. 6th-ranked Alabama -13 at 15th-ranked LSU. Red hot winning picks at experts.winnersandwhiners.com. Save 75% on any best bet package with the promo code ACTION75. That's ACTION75 at experts.winnersandwhiners.com.
I'm Trey Westerberg, 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Log on today, 977ESPN.com. Welcome to Talkin' Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
It is hour 2 of Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond. We are back at it for hour number 2. Just 60 more minutes of our Tuesday show. Time flies by, and that first hour dominated college football conversation, rightfully so. Brian Harsin out at Auburn. But it's time for us to venture inside the gymnasium. High school basketball tipping off all across the Tennessee Valley. College basketball getting into full force. So this is the best time of year because you got every sport being played right now, all kind of intersecting with each other at one time.
Yeah, you do, and it's hard to believe it's already here. But high school basketball, we had Huntsville City Schools Media Day last week. It was good to be out there for a little bit, and a lot of those schools, including Huntsville High and our next guest, they are going to get cranked up along with Mae Jemison. As a matter of fact, it will be a city clash on Thursday. Oakwood Academy and Huntsville High will tip off. And Friday, it will be the Columbia Eagles hosting the Mae Jemison Jaguars. Of course, as we know, our good friend Howard Pride is back at Mae Jemison High School and going into his second year. Our next guest is with us on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. His team finished strong, ended up winning a dramatic game in the area tournament at the buzzer in Andy Blackston's last game at Madison Academy, and that is Justin Johnson, and he's with us on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline, the head coach of the Columbia Eagles. Coach, welcome back to the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure.
It is, Coach. And I was talking to Howard Pride at Media Day last week, and he really had high praise for your team. He said 1 through 7, he didn't know if there was a better 7-man rotation in the city. I know you had a very young squad last year that you saw grow up quite a bit during their journey through the season, but I know there's got to be a lot of excitement for these young guys. Now that you've been there a year, you've kind of set the expectations and the culture, a lot of energy, and I know they're excited to play a city rival in Game 1.
Yes, sir. They're ready. They're locked and loaded and ready. I'm proud of these guys because these guys took on the challenge of the off-season, and they made themselves better as basketball players, but not only as basketball players, as young men. The first quarter, we had, I think, just about all our players except 2 was on the honor roll. So that's what I'm happy about. They're becoming better young men. So that's what we're ready, and we're getting cranked up, and we're ready to get it going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and last year I think when we talked, it was a lot of youth. And when we're talking high school, I mean, everybody's youth, but it was a lot of younger guys, a lot of guys that needed that little bit of seasoning. This year, that group a little year older, a little wiser, so to speak, for you?
Oh, yes, 100%, definitely. I think I like to be frank and honest. I think those whoopings we got, that grew them up very fast. I think that was a blessing in disguise. They needed that. And I told them, don't you ever forget how that felt. Don't you forget how it feels for people to walk out the gym while you're playing. Don't forget how it feels to play in front of an empty gym and use that as fuel for your fire. So these guys, I think they remember, and they play like they remember. They're going to do.
No question. We're talking to Justin Johnson, the head basketball coach of the Columbia Eagles. And Coach, how was your summer? How did you approach it? And I know June is a time where you can spend a lot of time with your team. You can go to play dates. You can help kind of mold guys, get guys comfortable, watch guys grow. How did you approach the summer for Columbia?
We approached it with a mentality. We wanted to create a mentality and a culture. We wanted to keep building on what we were trying to build. And my assistant coaches, I give those guys so much credit. I probably have the best assistant coach in the world because a lot of people don't know. Coach Teague knows because I talk to him all the time. I had back surgery this summer. I couldn't walk for about 3 months. So a piece of my spine broke off. So I had to get it taken out. So I was coaching from a stretcher. I used to get to the facilities. My boys would come to the truck, get me out the trunk of my truck, put me on the stretcher, and roll me in the gym. So that's how I was coaching most of the time. So my assistant coaches, they took over, and I think my boys seeing me that way and seeing me still show up, I think that lit a fire up under them, and they approached the game every day. I never had to call them, tell them to come to work out. I never had to tell them to work hard. So I think even though it was a little bit painful for me, it was a blessing for them to see someone pushing through, and they learn how to push through. So we just try to create an environment and a culture of toughness, and I think we accomplished that.
Coach, who are you going to kind of lean on this year?
Yeah, talk about that top 7.
Oh, man, I do think, and Coach Pride, whatever he says, you can believe it because he is an excellent coach. I mean, no doubt. He's not going to say it, but he is an excellent coach. We got a lot of guys coming back. Keyshawn Watkins, of course, if he's a better player in the city or the state, I need to see him. Keyshawn, last year he averaged 26 points and 16 rebounds as a sophomore. He's 6'5", and he plays wing. He can go. Jacoby Eddie, my point guard, can play. Cam Fowler. I actually had 8 guys ineligible last year, and I got them all back this year. So we got a semi-rotation that's pretty good. I'm actually comfortable playing 10 to 11 though. So I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah,
Keyshawn Watkins.
Yeah, go ahead.
Keyshawn Watkins, he's a monster. He went crazy in the summertime on the EYBL circuit. He did very well. Jacoby Eddie, he has vision like I've never seen before from a point guard. And I threw him in the fire as a nightbreaker last year, so he can see the game the way I want him to see. And Cam Fowler, he trains with J.R. Strobridge, and J.R. got him right. So I think we're gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt. And Coach, talk about this opener. I mean, there's a lot of camaraderie, but there's a lot of competitiveness. Guys, when you're playing in a city game, should be a great crowd. And I know the kids are excited to play against Coach Pride, and we know his kids play hard. I mean, he did a great job in his first go-round at Mae Jemison High School. He's done a great job at Decatur earlier in his career. He spent a year at Westminster. He certainly helped Danny Petty's James Clemens program. So he's been around the city a long time, done a great job. But talk about playing a squad like Mae Jemison in the first game.
I think it's a blessing because it lets you see right off the bat where you are, even if it's just from a competitive standpoint. You get to see where your kids, where they are, if they're going to play hard, are they going to bow down in the pressure. And like you said, somebody like Coach Pride, it's always a pleasure to play against someone like that, especially as a coach, because it makes me have to coach. And I think, like you said, these kids know each other. It's a friendly rivalry. They see each other. They play ball at the parks together. And I think that's a great way to open up a season because it gets everybody excited. It's not just one of these games you can run through someone and you just don't get a parameter to where your kids are. I think this is a very good game to start the season off. And we're ready for the talent, and I'm very happy that he decided to play us for the first game so we can kind of get the city lit up a little bit on a Friday night.
Yeah, talk about the schedule this year. Obviously, the Huntsville City Classic is part of that schedule, but how else are you going to kind of challenge the kids?
The N2 Hoops Classic with Coach Teagues. You know, I'm always going to play wherever Teagues is. And he asked me, he said, "Who you want, Coach?" I said, "I want Huff in the first round." He said, "You crazy." I said, "Well, I'm going to be crazy." Nice. So that's who I have the first round of the N2 Hoops tournament, Huffman. So that's just going to see who we are. We're never going to run away from a challenge. And like I said, we got beat by 60 last year. We got beat by 50. So it is what it is. We're going to lace them up whoever we get in front of.
Yeah, and it's going to be and Coach, I know you mentioned some of your guys, but and you mentioned the improvement of your point guard who was just a freshman last year. You've got one of the best players in the city who will be entering his junior year, no doubt about it, who averaged a double-double for Columbia. But who's another player or two that you've seen really blossom, especially over the summer, because that's when a lot of guys grow. And that's why I love the summer now in June when you can be with your guys and you can play other people and see, and play together as a squad before they go back out on the AAU circuit. But who's another couple of guys that you're really excited about that have blossomed, you think, and are ready to take on bigger roles for Columbia?
I got another young point guard, Trey Peterson. He was a freshman last year also. He came on. I have a kid, Chance Allen. He's a freshman. He's an upcoming freshman. He can play very well. I have a kid, Ezekiel Draddick. He came back from JP2. He's 6'7" kid. He can really, really play. I have Tom McCrary. He's Keyshawn's brother. He was one of the ones who was ineligible last year. He's probably my best player, to be honest. Wow. He doesn't have the size of his brother. He's probably an inch or two shorter than his brother, so he's probably right at 6'3". But he is that Draymond Green. He's the dog that stirs the pot. He's the one when we're on defense. If you're not rotating, I don't have to say anything. He's the one who says who gets everybody going. I got a kid, Trey Petway. Trey Petway can play. He came from Grizzly. He tore his ACL a couple years ago, so he hasn't played since then, but he's back. I have Trey Brooks, a kid who was ineligible last year. I can go down the whole list. A lot of my kids, they all got better. And I don't think it's so much of the talent standpoint they got better. It was mentality they got better. They work every day now. They come ready to get better. They come, they want to run. They want to get better. They want to make straight A's. They want to stay out the hallway, stay out of the trouble. So these kids, like you said, it was a blessing to be with them for a year. You know, like I know, it takes about a year to get your system in place and get everything going. So it's just, I'm excited about it. I mean, I had Coach Teagues. He helps me out still. He came over here and he, okay, Coach, you need to work on this, this, and this. The other day, Coach Jack Dawes, and I really appreciate Coach Dawes. He told me to call him, let's sit down and have dinner. So it's just all these coaches, they take me in, and they're being very, very nice to me, and they're teaching me. So I'm happy to see what we can do.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. We think it's Columbia Eagles basketball is definitely back on the upswing, and I thought the way you guys finished was huge. Getting that win in the area tournament and putting out a program of the caliber of Madison Academy was a big step forward, and I think it showed the buy-in of your kids, and they kept believing and battling all year. no doubt about it. We look forward to seeing them in the N2 Hoops and, of course, in the Huntsville City Classic, our annual event that we're so excited about each and every year. And we think Columbia's definitely got a chance to make some noise. But, Coach, we appreciate the time and you talking some Columbia Eagles basketball with us. And I know you guys crank up on Friday. Where does the schedule go from there after you guys take on Mae Jemison?
After Friday, we off for a week basically. So we have an academy next. Then I think we have Decatur after that. It's not we had a gauntlet last year. We had Austin. Okay, we had a real gauntlet to start it off. It's a little softer this year, so I tried to soften it up a little bit. And I say soften not because the teams are weaker, but we had 6 straight away games last year to start the season off. So we have a couple home games. So hopefully we can get our feet a little wet and we won't have to just jump into the deep end.
Well, everybody go out and support these young men. It should be a great crowd, a lot of energy. Mae Jemison traveling to the Columbia Eagles for their tip-off on Friday night. Coach, we appreciate it. Thank you for the time, and good luck against the Mae Jemison Jaguars on Friday.
Thank you, and it's always a pleasure. Anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, good stuff there. High school basketball getting into the full swing of things, and obviously it kind of merges with that high school football, so some teams playing without some of their guys, especially in the smaller schools, as they got these deep playoff runs in high school football. Some other college note, though, that we do want to mention. We talked briefly about it yesterday. Tennessee-Georgia, monster game on Saturday. We all know what's at stake there. We've all talked about it, but Drew, Georgia probably going in. We talked about Georgia's pass rush not being where it was last year. It's kind of hard to duplicate that from last year. But their pass rush has really kind of fallen off the edge. They've only averaged a little over 1 sack a game. They're going to be possibly shorthanded not only Saturday, but for the rest of the season along that defensive line.
Yeah, and really with their Jack Backer, edge rusher, and as I told you, Scott, this was basically reported by Matt Zenitz this morning while we were, talking about the Auburn situation when we came on the air, because it was such a big deal, because you got the athletic director in place, then you dismissed the head coach, and then we talked to Brian Matthews, who's been, with that program, following that program for so long. But Nolan Smith, former 5-star at IMG Academy, stalwart for Georgia for the last 3+ years. He was injured he came into the Florida game injured, but he re-injured himself. And it looks like it's even more serious than a shoulder situation, because that's what was speculated upon when he was held out of the majority of the Florida game in Jacksonville. It looks like it's a pec injury, much along those lines of TJ Watt, if people have been following the NFL, who's been out for several weeks now at the Steelers with a pectoral injury. That's the kind of injury that J.J. Watt missed a significant amount of time with last year, Scott. So it looks like that Nolan Smith is out for the season with that pectoral injury, so that's a huge loss for Georgia's defense. Luckily, they've recruited like Alabama at a very, very high level, so they have depth, but certainly not having him against Tennessee is a big loss.
All right, now coming up tonight, you do get the first rendition of the college football playoff rankings. Your undefeated teams left in college football: Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, Tennessee, and Georgia. Those are your FBS teams that are undefeated as of right now. Would you put Ohio State or Tennessee one atop the college football rankings going into the initial rankings?
I mean, I would put Georgia number one.
Or Georgia. Okay, my bad. I
would put Georgia number one. I wouldn't put – who in the Blue Blazes does Ohio State beat besides overrated Penn State? They've beaten nobody. At least Georgia decimated Oregon. Okay? Now, you can argue that Georgia hasn't played a great team in the SEC yet, but they've won all the games except for Missouri handily. And so I would probably put Tennessee number 2, and then I'd put the Sucks number 3, because I think Tennessee has better wins. You could even make a case for Tennessee being number 1, because at least they've beaten Alabama. Ohio State hasn't beaten anybody in the class of Alabama. Nowhere close. Because the Big Ten's terrible. I mean, it's like playing Vandy every other week.
And a ranked Kentucky team.
Yeah, at the time.
Yeah.
So I just think, I would have to go with probably Georgia, a shade over Tennessee, and then Ohio State, and then Michigan. That would be the top 4.
So looking over strength of schedules, some places right now have Alabama 1, Texas 2, Tennessee 3, Ohio State 4. As far as strength of schedules go. I'm kind of going over, a lot of places have it different. I guess maybe because of the back. I guess early on.
Well, I mean, the Notre Dame was highly ranked at the time, and they got a nice win over overrated Syracuse. But I mean, Notre Dame is not that good.
Right now, ESPN's College Football Power Index has Ohio State 1, Alabama 2, Georgia 3, Michigan, then Tennessee. That is what they have. I'm kind of going over right now. I want to see. Yeah, that is the okay. That's the FBI Football Power Index. That's the power index, so that's really not the strength of schedule. But you're right, though. I mean, what lies ahead but really, though, and this is why the first rendition, the first one of these rankings mean nothing, because if Tennessee goes out and beats Georgia this Saturday, the second edition of the rankings, Tennessee is going to move up regardless. I mean, these first ones mean nothing. Just like the first part of the college football poll, really. I mean, if you win, you're going to move up.
Yeah.
All right, 8:20. Let's get a break in, because when we come back, we do want to talk more about this Georgia-Tennessee matchup, because we talked a little bit of the Tennessee side. What about the Georgia side? Georgia has a lot of stake as well. They are the defending national champions, and I don't know. Maybe it's because they just haven't had a real tough schedule in front of them. We just kind of, I don't want to say we've forgotten about Georgia, but we've just kind of.
Tennessee has played really well lately, so they've got a lot of the momentum and the buzz. But Georgia, they didn't play their best football, but they still, covered the spread, so to speak, and soundly whipped Florida. It wasn't Stetson Bennett's best game. He can certainly play better. I think their defense can play better. They kind of went through a lull there in the third quarter, but then they finished strong. We already talked about them being without Nolan Smith. This is still a very talented roster. It's still going to be in Athens, where I think they're 29-1 in their last 30.
Right.
So they've protected the home turf. And for the majority of this Tennessee schedule, they've really only had one opponent where there was quality that they played on the road, and that was Pitt. And Pitt is not a great team. They won that game in overtime. So this will be by far and away their biggest road test, because they beat Kentucky like a mule, and that was in Neyland Stadium. They beat Alabama, outlasted the Tide. That was in Neyland Stadium. They've had a lot of their big games in Neyland so far this year. And so they've been very, very impressive at home. There's no doubt about it. And I think as we've looked at the real South Kakalaki, they don't stand a chance in hell against Tennessee. They're going to get eviscerated. And so is Missouri. They don't even show up, get the flu, whatever. But if you're going to show up, you better, have your hard hat on, because you're fixing to take a whipping. So that's not going to be a game either. This is the biggest hurdle for Tennessee in order to to end up playing in Atlanta and playing in the playoff and being able to get to a national championship type game is beating Georgia. But Georgia is the same deal. We thought going into the season that their schedule set up really nicely, and if Georgia can get past this game, then I think whoever wins this has got a clear path to Atlanta and a clear path to the college football playoff.
It's amazing, though. Georgia's the defending national champion, and you look all around college football, everybody's talking about, Ohio State, and then Tennessee, and then, can Alabama get back there? No one's really outside of SEC world talking about Georgia. I mean, it's amazing that they are the defending national champions, and they're just kind of like, just kind of flying under there.
But they're still a significant favorite.
No, they are. They are. That's what's funny about it.
It was a 9-point favorite last I saw. So we'll
that's
talk
what's funny about it. Yeah,
Brooks Austin about that.
All right, let's get a break in. Let's bring Brooks Austin in when we come back.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
Just got a wreck westbound at Governor's in 4th. They're running it as a possible injury accident. 431 and Milt Wilson, man reported with an injury, and they were still trying to clear 31 and 20 at the Y. That one was affecting northbound traffic trying to go toward Athens. Popeye's $6 Big Box is back with 2 pieces of the crispy hand-breaded Louisiana seasoned chicken, 2 sides, and a buttermilk biscuit. Popeye's University and Jordan 72 and Jeff and North Parkway. Captain Nick in the Popeye's Skywatch Traffic Center.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're speaking another language, like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
At Bad Daddy's Burger Bar, people call the award-winning burgers totally insane, which is a compliment because Bad Daddy's Burgers are just that, chef-inspired expressions of pure burger amazingness built with premium Angus beef. They're bold and they're bad. Pair one with one of their signature cocktails or assortment of local craft brews. Bad Daddy's Burger Bar, 2317 Memorial Parkway. Check out our menu and even order online at BadDaddy'sBurgerBar.com.
You've got to experience Toyotathon at Bill Penny Toyota. They've got the selection with over 700 new Toyotas to choose from. And they've got the extras with Bill Penny perks and a 10-year unlimited warranty. So get on over to Bill Penny Toyota today and experience Toyotathon. Bill Penny Toyota in Huntsville and online at BillPennyToyota.com. Bill Penny's Toyota 10-year unlimited warranty is valid through the 10th year of ownership. Valid on new vehicles only. See dealer for details.
Are you tired of chasing a roofing contractor to show up on time or even show up at all? I'm Sam Fleming with Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Our motto at Fleming Roofing is we show up. Our goal at Fleming Roofing is to provide the reliable customer service that you deserve, and we have the resources to meet all of your roofing needs: residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. We are manufacturer certified for roof coatings, single-ply membranes, and asphalt shingles. Whenever you need a roofing professional you can count on, call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We are committed to finding the solution that meets your needs. We don't have quotas or heavy-handed sales tactics. Fleming Roofing, we have expert experience. We show up. Free estimates, residential, commercial, industrial, replacement, or repairs. Check us out at FlemingHSV.com. FlemingHSV.com. When you need a quick response, it's Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
I'm attorney Gary Lackey. You know, you'll hear people say we're like a family, but here at the Lackey Law Firm, that's really true, not just a saying.
I'm Justin Lackey. With my father and my sister, we have a special connection to each other.
I'm Jennifer Lackey. At the Lackey Law Firm, when we take on your case, you become part of our family. You really do.
And we'll always do whatever it takes to get everything you deserve.
If you're injured, you worry about getting well, not about paperwork or insurance companies or figuring out how to get to your lawyer's office. I'll come to you.
We worry about your case so you don't have to.
When you've been injured, we know that your case is probably the biggest thing going on in your life. More important than almost anything else.
And it's important to us too, for one simple reason. Family takes care of each other, and at the Lackey Law Firm, we'll take care of you.
The Lackey Law Firm. The Lackey Law Family. 1-800-4RIGHTS.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
Organizations using Salesforce know how powerful the platform is and how much time, money, and headaches it saves if it's set up right and you know how to use it. Let's face it, Salesforce is complicated and time-consuming to figure out, and a lot can go wrong now and down the road without expert help. That's why most Salesforce users work with an implementation partner like Higher Echelon, so they get the absolute most out of their Salesforce investment. Higher Echelon is a 5-star Salesforce consulting partner who won Salesforce Military Hiring Partner of the Year. President Dr. Joe Ross is retired Army who played and later coached for the cadets. He puts that experience to good use at Higher Echelon, where they pride themselves on hiring veterans. Look, not all Salesforce partners are the same. Don't put your company at risk by going with an inferior partner. Higher Echelon is the trusted partner you can count on to get you up and running and seeing returns on your Salesforce investment in a fraction of the time it would take if you go it alone. Go to higherechelon.com. That's HIGHERECHELON.com to learn more. Go higher and go Army.
Got a wreck in Madison Boulevard and Shelton Road. That one's reporting injuries. Westbound on Governors at 4th, also reporting as an injury type. We had somebody hurt 431 at Wilson Man. That one should be about wrapped up. Dr. Sandman has the Somnodent, a safe, insurance-approved alternative for snoring and sleep apnea. Dr. Randall Sandlin, 350-CARE. Captain Nick in the North Parkway Popeyes Skywatch Traffic Center.
This is Chuck Oliver. Listen to me coming up at noon today. Now, back to Talkin' Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Hi, welcome back. Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond with you, holding court until 9 a.m. And we talked a little bit about it going to break. And the first edition of the college football playoff rankings come out tonight. Georgia could be number 1. Ohio State could be number 1. We don't know. We don't know where the committee is going to lean towards this one. But on Saturday, if Georgia takes care of business against Tennessee, no doubt they'll be up there, number 1. And the defending national champions right where they left off.
Yeah, no doubt. They're the number 1 team in the country right now. They get my vote number 1 in the college football playoff rankings. And the winner of this, what should be to me a top 2 battle, Georgia versus Tennessee in Athens, will be the number 1 team in America and have a clear path to Atlanta for the SEC championship game and to the college football playoff, probably regardless of what happens in the SEC championship game. Certainly, the Georgia Bulldogs are your defending national champions. Our next guest is as well-versed with Georgia as anyone we talk to. They call him the film guy. He is the lead editor for Dogs Daily Fan Nation, part of Sports Illustrated, and that is, of course, Brooks Austin. And Brooks Austin is with us on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Brooks, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, gentlemen. How are you guys today?
We are doing well. Of course, we'll get the negative out of the way. We talked about it already on the show. We saw it on via Matt Zennett's National College Football Reporter for On3, and I'm sure you already had the intel also. Doesn't look good for Nolan Smith, especially Saturday, but even the rest of the season for the Dogs.
Yeah, my eyes kind of lit up, or my ears kind of perked up when Kirby Smart mentioned a pec after Saturday's game. You know, it was originally reported by CBS's TV network that it was a shoulder injury.
Right, yeah.
And then Kirby post-game said something about a pec. And my eyes were like, or my ears were like, that's not necessarily good, because even a pec strain can become a pec tear really, really quickly. So, yeah, and then they had MRIs and things came back. It was a little bit worse than they originally found out, originally thought or forecasted. So, yeah, looks like Nolan Smith's probably going to be out the rest of the year. Yeah, bad news. Not only because he's a great football player, obviously, he's a starting jack for them. Plays what Dallas Turner plays for Alabama, if that helps you guys, audience, out just a bit. But obviously a starter, but more of a leadership role for this football team. It's definitely the vocal and spiritual leader of this football team, no doubt.
Yeah, and they need something like that on Saturday. First of all, it's hard to believe that in the whole history of Sanford Stadium, it's the first ever 1 versus 2 matchup. There, that first of all, that is hard to believe. Of all the teams that have come through, and all this other stuff, but it's Tennessee where you got to get Hendon Hooker and you got to try to keep him and contain. That you need that presence.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely are going to have a raucous crowd. Obviously, Kirby Smart has challenged the fan base already. I was kind of thinking about it yesterday, honestly, though. It's like Tennessee plays so fast as a home fan, like you're going to have to pay attention. You're almost going to have to be screaming constantly because there's no dead action. There's no downset hut, look at the sideline, wait 10, 15 seconds, get a new call in, everybody's screaming. Now we can move the defensive line real quick and get a false start. That's not really who this team is. This isn't Kentucky that wastes 30 seconds for the play clock to motion around 6-7 different times. This team lines up, says downset hut, and goes for daggum 85 snaps a game. So if you're a fan going to this football game, if you have sold them or, pulled out a second mortgage spot ticket, stand up, yell loud, and yell for 4 because that's what it's going to take. They're not going to slow down. I don't think this is a football team that's going to, date the model. They're not going to go in there and get away from what they do. They want to play fast. They want to get as many cracks at it as they humanly possibly can in any environment, especially on the road.
And then we're talking to Brooks Austin, as we said, the lead editor for Dogs Daily. And to circle back, Georgia's recruited at as high a level as anyone. They didn't play with Nolan for the majority of the last game against Florida. Who replaces him? They've recruited it, so well. They certainly are one of the few rosters that can probably absorb this and still play at a high level. Talk about some changing roles and production-wise, what Kirby's going to do here in your mind.
So I think Georgia's outside linebacker room's like 18 months from being one of the best in the country. I just think they're really, really young right now.
Right.
It would be so awesome if Marvin Jones had already had, 400 snaps under his belt or 200 snaps under his belt, but he hasn't been able to get really on the field, and that's because Robert Beal and Nolan Smith have been on the field. The older guys have been playing. Chaz Chambliss has been a guy that's been in the program for a couple of years now that has struggled with some hamstring injuries this year and hasn't really been able to go as much either. It's a really, really banged-up room as is. So you're looking at a senior in Robert Beal who's, I think he played relatively well in that second half Saturday against Florida guys. That's a really physical football team. That's a football team that likes to run the ball and run it often and play kind of slower and more methodical, take shots downfield off for 12, personnel. That's the opposite of what Tennessee does. So this is much more of a twitchy and play in space kind of game, and that definitely favored Nolan Smith. There's no one person really on the roster that kind of replicates what Ford does for Georgia. Everyone else is much bigger, longer, physical than Nolan.
Last year, this Georgia defense, we all know what they accomplished last year, but in this Tennessee game last year, they had 3 sacks in this game, 2 turnovers against Tennessee. Hendon Hooker doesn't turn the ball over a lot. That's one of the things that he does not do. Georgia this year has, stat-wise, while they may not have, their pass rush is a little bit different this year. Bringing down the quarterback with a sack is not where they've had the strongest numbers.
No, I mean, the sack numbers aren't incredibly high, but the pressure rates are. I think if you go back and just, obviously I do the film watching, so I'll just tell you, and the draft records kind of show it, right?
Yeah.
Last year's defense was predicated off of shut the entire drive down havoc plays. Like, oh my God, a 12-yard sack. Holy crap, they just blew that play up. Oh my God, Nakobe Dean, 2nd and 12 now just because he ran the screen down in the backfield for a TFL. Those like, series-stopping plays, those are what's going to have to happen on Saturday. It's a lot more of it's a deeper answer. You've got to be able to stop the run with 5. You can't really allow them to make you dictate what you're doing. Tennessee's an offense that has all the answers. That's kind of what the system's based off of. They spread you all the way out, and they say, all right, you're either going to play the pass today, and we're going to run for 350, or you're going to play the run today, and we're going to throw for 400. Y'all make the decision and let us know. And once y'all do, we'll get to work. But Georgia is a football team that kind of says, we're going to stop you with 5, and we're going to play the pass with 6, and see if y'all can beat us today. That's the chess match we're going to be watching Saturday. Yeah, turnovers are always important in these big, mega games. But that's football. Turnover margins are football.
Well, and Brooks, I still think the most important thing for Georgia to do, and it's the thing Alabama didn't do well enough. First of all, Alabama didn't stop the run. They did the year before. They did not stop the run nearly well enough this year. And then for the first 3 quarters, they ran it well against Tennessee, but they did not run it well in the fourth quarter. Georgia's got to run the ball. It still comes down to running the ball and stopping the run to me for Georgia to win the game.
Yeah, you got to watch out. When you got a really, really talented quarterback like Bryce Young, you might look up every once in a while and realize, oh, crap, we've called 14 pass plays in a row. You know what I mean? I feel like that happens to Alabama every once in a while because he is so talented, but you are 100% correct. If you have to add a safety into the box because you can't stop Tennessee's run game, you're going to get torched. I don't care who you are. They're gonna bomb you deep. And I got so many questions like, hey, why are they leaving that safety one-on-one with Jalen Hyatt? Do you think they want to do that? Do you think Nick Saban wanted to do that for the back end of that football game? No. He couldn't stop the run, so they had to bring safety down. They had to remove the help. That's what I'm talking about with the Tennessee's offense is predicated off of there being no right answers. But the right answers are you have to be able to stop the run with a really, really light box. And that's why Georgia had so much success last year because Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt and Jalen Carter were clogging up that middle of that offense and stopping Tennessee's run game.
Mm-hmm. They really were. There's no question about that. And I know you study film so much. You've studied what Tennessee's doing to people. Where has Tennessee improved the most in your mind in a year from when, of course, they had so much trouble against both Georgia and Alabama? What's the most improved part of their team?
I think it's their adaptive run scheme and their willingness to run Hendon Hooker. I mean, what I've been telling you guys is that the answer is to play a light box, right? To play five guys. Well, it's impossible to do that if the sixth guy in the box is the quarterback is an additional ball carrier. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna add the running back and the quarterback now into the equation, we can't stop you. And Hendon Hooker's ability to keep them out of 2nd and 12s and keep them out of 2nd and 10s and turn those into 2nd and 6s, that's kind of been the key to them sustaining drives against the elite programs that can sustain 4-quarter defense against a team that takes this many snaps.
Obviously it is a lot about the Tennessee offense, the Georgia defense, but the Georgia offense still has to play, and it's a lot about the Tennessee defense. We saw this Tennessee defense play very well against Kentucky, but for most of the season, this Tennessee defense, at least the pass defense, has been vulnerable to a lot of passing yards.
Yeah, they're a risk-reward defense. It's so fun to watch them. I mean, they're not like a strap-you-up defense, give up 18 and make it bloody today. But they are very much so, we know who we are, and we're just going to play this today, and we are not going to abandon the strategy. They blitz a lot. They like to play man coverage in the back end. They don't really hide much, and they're very much so pressure football teams. Because they know what they have on the back end. They know they can't really kind of keep guys in front of them anyways. So they play we're trying to get you down now before you beat us deep later kind of defense. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, but I think you mentioned the key earlier. Georgia's been able to run the football consistently for the majority of this football season. I would say outside of maybe 2 quarters against Missouri. So who's going to be the football team Saturday that's running at 5.5, 6 yards a clip? Because whoever that football team is going to be putting up points and winning this football game. I think it's funny. If Georgia were doing offense at a higher pace than everyone else, if they didn't take their foot off the gas in the second half, I think they would be in the conversation for a lot of these best offenses in the sport conversations and discussions. Okay. I mean, heck, they're 2nd in total yards per game. I think they're 3rd in total points per game. They're 1st in the SEC in yards per play. I mean, they're putting up as many yards and as many points as any other offense in the sport. So, yeah, we can talk about Tennessee all we want offensively. They're running about 15 more plays per game as well offensively. So Georgia's offense is great is the answer to that question, too.
Well, and the thing is, I think Stetson's much more comfortable. People forget he wasn't even the starter at the beginning of last year, but he took over and became the guy and led him to the national championship. There seems to be even more trust in him. I didn't think he had his sharpest game against Florida. I think he's going to have to be better Saturday, but he's certainly uber experienced. Both these quarterbacks are. That's what's pretty amazing. I kind of joked both of them almost apply for Social Security. You're not going to see this anymore where guys are 24 years old and playing against each other. But again, Stetson's very experienced. He's been through the wars. This is going to be interesting to see how he plays against Tennessee. I anticipate him playing well. I just didn't think he was super sharp against Florida, yet he still threw for 300 yards and a couple of scores.
Yeah, I was about to say they were on pace at one point, I think at the half, to almost have 700 yards of total offense. I think he made some kind of goofy mistakes. The pick to Dejon Edwards was just it was weird. Like, I don't understand why he would underthrow that football. But the rest of he threw some balls Saturday that I thought were top 3, 4, 5 throws that he's made in his Georgia career. Just when I went back and watched them, just real subtle stuff. He's in command of the offense, Drew. I mean, that's kind of what has been on display. I mean, the goofy turnovers and the interceptions, that's part of who that guy is. That's part of why his eclecticness, his chaos, is part of what makes him great. So you can't really coach it out of him, and you can't really tell him not to do it. It's going to happen. You just got to play around it and survive and answer offensively and defensively when you have those sudden changes. And Georgia's been good about that lately.
Yeah, they have.
And Stetson Bennett, though, I mean, it's hard. I mean, you start breaking it down and you talk about him being a walk-on, but all of a sudden now it's like, where does he rank as far as Georgia quarterbacks go over time? He's 22-3 as a starter at Georgia. Mm-hmm. And then last week he puts himself in the same conversation as Tim Tebow, because he's had, 4 straight games of 250 yards passing and at least a rushing touchdown?
Look, I made the joke, and I wasn't really even joking after he got done winning the national championship last January. I said it was at the worst. I mean, he'll get an opportunity in the NFL. I mean, he's earned some, at least a look. But if he doesn't play for a long time, and I'll let Brooks finish this, at worst, he's never going to have to. He and Buck are never going to have to buy a drink ever in the state of Georgia.
I mean, he's going down his history as a great quarterback in Georgia history.
Yeah, go ahead. Make your point.
Yeah, he's good. I mean, the other guys say he's already the greatest. Like Aaron Murray claims him to be the greatest. Like the guys that sit at that table already give 13 the nod. But I'll say this: when it comes to NFL chances and Stetson Bennett, you guys check me on this. I'm pretty sure Trace McSorley's still on an NFL roster.
Yeah, he's going to get a look, man. There's no question.
If Trace McSorley can play in the NFL for this long, Stetson Bennett might be a starter in the league. Are you kidding me?
Look, man, they think Will Levis might be the first pick. Are you kidding me? And he's not even good.
If I hear another Will Levis to Josh Allen comparison, I'm pulling my damn teeth out. Oh, my God.
I love it.
Good Lord.
I love it.
I've seen Buddy volleyball spike arrow route. Get out of here. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Brooks. We appreciate the time. Thank you. It's Brooks Austin. Does a great job with Dogs Daily.
He's pulling his teeth out.
He's my spirit animal here because we both are not high on Will Levis. You can connect with Brooks. Brooks Austin BA on Twitter. And he runs, as we said, Dogs Daily Fan Nation, at Dogs Daily FN for his website and to follow his work. But, yes, absolutely.
I mean,
not a Will Levis guy.
Georgia's averaging 41.8 points per game.
Yeah.
6th best in the country. They've outscored their opponents 334 to 84. Mm-hmm. You know, they're 46 of 47 in the red zone, leading the nation at 98% this year, with 33 touchdowns and 13 field goals. When Georgia gets into the red zone, they score touchdowns. Good teams score touchdowns in the red zone.
And I just think I'm going to be interested to see how aggressive they are against Tennessee. I think they're going to give Tennessee some different looks. I don't think it's going to be a replay of what Alabama did. I know, Kirby's from the same coaching tree. I just think it's going to be different.
But Tennessee has been so good at creating mismatches. No matter what the defense does, Tennessee's been able to get open guys. That's what's going to be so much fun to watch.
Well, pressure bust pipes, and we'll see if they can get some pressure on them. And if Mo, Larry, Curley, and Shemp aren't officiating.
Well, I was going to see who the officials are, but I don't know if they have that listed yet here. Right. I'll look on the game notes here. Let's get a break in. Going to wrap up this extravaganza coming up next.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
We've got 4 injury wrecks trying to wrap up as we wrap things up this morning. Madison Boulevard and Shelton Road, Governors in 4th, and 431 in Wilson, Man. And we've got Decatur PD checking a possible traffic signal problem at Beltline in Danville. Expert heart care backed by advanced technology. When you need cardiac care, you need the Heart Doctor. Dr. Randall Burns and the team at Huntsville Heart Specialist on Bob Wallace Avenue. Captain Nick in the Jordan Lane Popeyes Skywatch Traffic Center.
Specializing in simple and affordable rentals, McCurry Van and Car Rental can make sure you have just the right vehicle for your next family vacation, weekend getaway, or if you just need transportation while your vehicle is being repaired. McCurry carries Ford Transit vans and Mercedes Sprinter vans, trucks and work vans, and more. And they offer discounted rental rates for long-term rentals. Now with 4 locations: Athens, Muscle Shoals, Coleman, and Huntsville. Log on McCurryRentals.com to make your reservation now. That's McCurryRentals.com. Ann Adams with Berkshire Hathaway Rise Real Estate is the one name to know if you're buying or selling real estate. With years of local experience, Ann Adams offers buyers in-depth knowledge of the local housing market and will narrow available properties down to those you'll be interested in so you can save time when shopping for your new home. If you're ready to sell, Ann offers a seamless process using accurate pricing and expert negotiation skills to make sure you get a fair price for your home. Call Ann Adams today at 256-337-2625 or log on bhhsriserealestate.com.
Saturday, November 12th in Jasper, Alabama, just minutes from Lewis Smith Lake, prime riverfront property will be offered at a one-day liquidation sales event. Getting killed in the stock market? Buy something real, something you can enjoy with your family today. Buy waterfront. This RV-friendly gated community has great kayaking, fishing, and wildlife along with a large community area for social gatherings. Estate-sized parcels from $29.9 and direct waterfront parcels from $79.9. Prime waterfront properties on rushing water in a gated, gorgeous setting. Individual RV sites with utility hookups, no time limit to build, minutes from shopping, hospitals, schools, and neighboring a beautiful country club. One-day liquidation sale November 12th. Estate-sized parcels from $29.9 or direct waterfront parcels from $79.9. Call or click 877bigview.com for more information and to schedule an appointment. Don't miss this amazing opportunity on estate-size or waterfront parcels. That's 877-BIG-VIEW. Call or click 877bigview.com.
Football season is here, and as always, the best place to catch every game is downtown at Humphreys Bar and Grill. Humphreys is celebrating by bringing back their game day football specials. $2.75 Miller Lite, Coors Light, Yingling, and $3.50 Yellowhammer Gold Pints. $4 Fireball shots. Anytime football is on. And don't forget football trivia every Sunday night at 6. The best place to catch all the games all season long is downtown at Humphreys Bar and Grill.
Welcome back. Stan McDonald from the Stanton Law Firm. I had lunch with Lewis just recently and with a client of ours, a mutual client, and great to hear all the good things going on at the Stanton Law Firm.
Thank you, Wes. The Stanton Law Firm, as you know, we've discussed before, we're dirt lawyers. We do a lot of real estate, litigation and closing. And yes, my son Lewis McDonald enjoyed meeting you a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of your friends. He is, as you know, he's opened up a commercial closing division. So he's really helping a lot of people who are trying to close, buy, or sell on their commercial property. And you can't be in this community doing business without knowing Wes neighbors.
I don't know about that, but it sure was getting to meet another McDonald and talking a little bit about his grandfather, Coach Dye, and right. The different things. It was a lot of fun.
Well, your listeners are really going to enjoy meeting Lewis and you in this community. And like I said, at Jacob Title or the Stanton Law Firm, we close business. We close some good commercial closings, residential closings. We appreciate being part of your show.
Not looking or feeling your best? No energy for the things you like to do? Ready to look and feel younger? Make your appointment at Advanced Life Clinic, one of the region's foremost destinations for patients interested in looking and feeling their best. Specializing in advanced laser treatments and weight loss, male and female rejuvenation to offset the effects of aging, and more. See how Advanced Life Clinic can help you enjoy your life again. Call 256-882-6555 or log on advancedlifeclinic.com.
It's
time for tomorrow's headlines today with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
All right, tomorrow's headlines today looks like this. You've got World Series Game 3 action.
Yeah, got rained out, right?
Yep, got rained out last night, so they're going to try to give it a go tonight. The Phillies and the Astros, Game 3, series tied at 1. Series shifts back to Philadelphia tonight. So hopefully they'll get Game 3 in of the World Series tonight.
Yeah.
Hopefully. We'll see. And then you did have some Monday Night Football last night.
A mauling, and the Czar is happy.
Yes, Cleveland 32, Cincinnati 13.
Yeah.
That was your score. Monday Night Football, Nick Chubb, 23 carries, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns for the former Georgia Bulldog.
I think Czar was wearing his jersey yesterday.
Probably always wears it.
With a funny elf in the hat, too.
The elf?
Yeah, the logo, the elf.
Oh, I thought you were talking about his son.
Lord, I'm not talking about his son. I'm talking about the logo of the Cleveland Browns.
I thought you were talking about John.
Oh,
we just called him the elf. All right, 256-576-4977. That's how you can get a part of the show this morning. Just a little bit of time left. I think we've talked pretty much about everything that is coming up big as far as Auburn goes. We've got Tennessee and Georgia. Now, coming up the next couple days, we will start really breaking down that Alabama-LSU game because that is an intriguing matchup in Baton Rouge. It is 6 versus 15 for the moment until the playoff rankings come out. It is 6 versus 15. Alabama, a 13-point favorite on the road in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, they are. They're a 13-point favorite. It's been a double-digit situation pretty much throughout. I was looking at the Georgia Tennessee. It's down to 8.5. It was at 9 at one point in time. So just kind of looking at those lines there. So Alabama's a 2-touchdown favorite. I do think that they are double digits better than LSU if they play their game and they play well. Of course, Alabama has struggled on the road. We understand that. But people forget, even with a backup quarterback, that they did take care of business and cover against Arkansas and win that game by 3 scores. So we will see. I think Alabama's the better football team. Now, certainly I think LSU has gotten better in year 1 under Brian Kelly, but I think Alabama is significantly better than both LSU and Ole Miss. And we'll see how Ole Miss can stay focused because, again, Lane Kiffin's going to be in the headlines. It's not he's certainly not the one causing it, but he's a wanted guy, and you've already heard Brian Matthews talking today about him and read it on social media, with the Brandon Marcellos and things of that nature, putting him out there as a top candidate for the Auburn job.
All right, LSU defensively. Right now, off the top of your head, anything that stands out? But
they got Ollie Gay, they've got Ojulari, they've got some good defensive linemen. They're talented up front. Their linebacker core with Harold Perkins, the freshman, is improving. I think their secondary, though, is where Alabama can exploit the Bayou Bengals.
All right, we'll talk more about that tomorrow, Thursday and Friday. Don't forget, because tomorrow Grady the Greek will join us right out of the gates. So we'll get his predictions on Alabama LSU, and we'll start breaking that down some more tomorrow.
And I believe he went 2-0 last week. He had Tennessee, and he had, of course, Arkansas.
He did.
I think he said Woo Pig.
He did. All right, that's going to do it for our 2 hours. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning, Wednesday edition. We've made it to the halfway point of the work week tomorrow. Back at it 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Download the app today.
If you're ready to lower your utility bills, it's time to call Eagle Insulation. Eagle can